Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm joined by Senators Gillibrand, Peters, and Kelly. And to show you what a nice caucus we have, today was Tammy Baldwin's birthday. Her staff brought cupcakes for everyone, remembering those who were vegan with their vegan cupcakes and those who were gluten-free with their gluten-free cupcakes. And each cupcake was different. Thank you, everybody.
Best press conference ever.
We want to eat those cupcakes. There were none for the press. Okay.
Badly.
All right. So we're gearing up to have a productive couple of weeks. Last night, Congress took an important step and overwhelmingly, and in bipartisan vote, in an overwhelmingly bipartisan step forward in the fight to eliminate forced arbitration for victims of sexual harassment and assault. By a large margin, 335 to 97, a majority of both parties, the House passed the bill authored by Senators Gillibrand and Graham. And it's really horrible that women or anybody and men were forced to sign away their rights to pursue charges of harassment and by being forced to sign these arbitration agreements. So this is long overdue, and I want to recognize my friend Senator Gillibrand, who has spearheaded the cause of ending forced arbitration for a long time. Thanks to her leadership, we're close to seeing this be passed into law. And I want to thank Senator Graham. We're working with him, and he is working right now to clear the Republican side so we can move this vote very quickly. I'm sure that this bill will have the same broad support in the Senate, and I hope we can move quickly. It's my intention to move this bill as quickly as we can in the Senate, and we hope to take action on the floor as soon as this week and send the bill to the President's desk. We're also working to advance our Jobs and Competition Bill, which is now called Make It in America. The U word is abolished because no one knew what it meant. So we can't even say the U word. But the Make It in America bill that will help relieve two of the things the public most cares about. One, increased costs, and you've seen the increased costs for cars, appliances, tech stuff because of the shortage of semiconductor chips. It also creates many more good-paying manufacturing and other jobs here in America. We do want to make it in America, and that's another thing the public cares a lot about. And Senator Kelly has spent a lot of time focused on this, cares deeply about it. The U.S. economy has experienced an economic recovery in the first year under President Biden and our Senate Democratic majority. Passing this important legislation will build on the success while lowering costs for American families. The Make It in America bill will make the investments we need so that we're never in the position of relying on foreign-made chips for everything from cars to home appliances. Now, there's a lot of work to do to move this bill to the President's desk. Obviously, we intend to go to a conference, an official formal conference, which takes a number of different steps, but we're working on getting those done. Now, one area that maybe doesn't get enough attention here in Congress but has an impact on the everyday lives of Americans is cybersecurity. We've seen a number of high-profile cyber attacks against the U.S. government, U.S. businesses, critical infrastructure, delays, headaches, increased costs to companies, from annoying phishing texts and emails trying to steal our identities to a ransomware attack like on the Colonial Pipeline that caused gas shortages and price spikes. Cybercrime is a real and growing threat. The bottom line is that, and it affects lots of people. I've had lots of school districts in my state subject to ransom, and they've had to pay a lot of money or sacrifice to the privacy of the kids' records. So this is very important to do. And one of the main provisions is it requires private entities to let the federal authorities know when they've been attacked. We have good cyber offense in America, but that cyber offense can't be used unless you know not only who was attacked, but the details of the attack. And the Peters bill, which is co-sponsored by Senator Portman, does just that. So I've asked Chairman Peters and others, I asked them to conduct a government-wide review of these attacks to determine what legislation may be needed. They've come up, Peters and Portman have come up with bipartisan legislation that he's going to speak on, and it's another area I hope Democrats and Republicans can continue working on as we pass meaningful legislation to keep America secure. Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. Thank you so much, Majority Leader Schumer, for your leadership and your commitment to advancing and passing the Ending Forced Arbitration, Sexual Assault, and Sexual Harassment Act. Last night, the bill did pass the House with broad bipartisan support, and I hope we'll see the same outcome in the Senate. This bill, which I worked on with Senator Graham, represents one of the most significant workplace reforms in American history. It will help us fix a broken system that protects predators and corporations and will help to end the days of silencing survivors. Too often when survivors of sexual assault or harassment in the workplace come forward, they're told that they are legally forbidden to sue their employer because somewhere buried in their employment contracts there was a forced arbitration clause. Forced arbitration stacks the deck against survivors. Instead of being allowed to have their day in court, these survivors are pushed into a system designed by the same corporation they are challenging. They are blocked from seeking information that could prove their case, and they are left in the hands of an extrajudicial arbitrator who is typically selected by their employer and is not always trained as a lawyer. The arbitration process not only allows corporations to hide sexual harassment and assault cases in the secretive and often biased process, but it also shields those who have committed serious misconduct from the public eye. Across the board, employers are less likely to win in arbitration employees are less likely to win in arbitration than they are in court. Even when they do win, they typically receive a much lower monetary reward. And because these results of arbitration are secret and binding, there's no chance for appeal, and repeat offenders are not held to account. Estimates suggest that 60 million Americans and 57.6% of female workers are subject to arbitration clauses, and many don't even know that it exists because it's hidden in the fine print of their contracts. These clauses are especially prevalent in low-wage fields and industries with disproportionate high number of women of color. These clauses leave those women who cannot afford to challenge their employers without any recourse. Survivors deserve a real chance at justice. This bill would do exactly that by voiding all forced arbitration provisions for sexual assault and harassment survivors, giving them their day in court, allowing them to discuss their cases publicly, and ending the days of institutional protection of harassers. I hope that all of our colleagues will join us in pushing for this critical workplace reform so that we can send it to President Biden's desk and deliver real change for survivors and working people across the country.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. Senator Peters. Sorry, Mark.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. Well, as Leader Schumer mentioned, perhaps one of the biggest threats that we face to the homeland right now are persistent cyber attacks that attack individuals, attack small businesses, large companies. No one is immune from these attacks. They continue to escalate and continue to endanger our economy and our general homeland security. And that's why the Homeland Security Committee focused on dealing with this challenge, and as Leader Schumer mentioned, focused on ransomware attacks in particular that can be devastating to any company, but particularly small businesses. In fact, it's been estimated if you are a very small business, that if you get hit by a ransomware attack, you're likely to be out of business within 18 months. This is actually an existential threat to American companies. Large ones as well, as we saw from Colonial Pipeline, were hit by a ransomware attack. It disrupted fuel distribution throughout the southeast part of the United States. Although they paid the ransom was recovered by the FBI, which was extraordinary. Even though they got the keys as a result of paying the ransom, when we had the CEO of the company before our committee, he testified that it would take 18 months for them to recover from where they were, even though they had the keys. This is something that has to be dealt with. It's a significant problem. And when we heard from the director of the FBI and the director of CISA, our Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency within Homeland Security, they said the first thing that we have to start with is that we have to know who is attacking and how are they attacking. We need to have situational awareness. We're in war here. This is a war against bad cyber actors and criminals and oftentimes nation states. And when you think about going into battle, you have to have situation awareness. You need to know where the enemy is. You need to know the contour of the landscape. That's what this legislation will do. It will require that critical infrastructure companies to report when they have a substantial attack. They'll have to report if they're paying ransom or they have a ransomware attack, and it'll allow both the FBI and CISA and other cyber officials to have a sense of who's actually attacking and what does that attack look like. And part of that response is to notify everybody else to know that it's coming. Businesses need to know this information. I use the example of ourselves in a neighborhood. If you're in a neighborhood and you have a burglar hitting houses in your neighborhood, you want to know that. That's information you want to know, so you lock your doors every night to make sure you're securing it, and to make sure the police are driving through your neighborhood as well because there's a burglar. The same thing is with cybersecurity as well, why it's critically important for us to do this. And when you think about today, why today is even more important than any day, is now we know that the Russians tend to be big players when it comes to cyber attacks, either direct attacks against us from the Russian government, or cyber criminals that operate out of Russia or other places with a wink and a nod. And now that we are in a situation with Russia and the issue on the Ukrainian border, I think we need to be prepared that if there is any retaliation from the Russians against the United States, it'll likely be cyber. So we need to be prepared. We need to make sure we have every single tool that we can possibly muster in the toolbox to protect Americans from cyber attacks from the Russians, from cyber criminals, from the Chinese, whoever may be involved. Now is the time for action. That's why I hope we pass this bill soon.
Gary. Now, Mark Kelly, last but certainly not least.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. So right now, folks in every state, including in my state of Arizona, are feeling the squeeze of rising costs. One of the big challenges that's facing our supply chains is the global shortage of microchips, which go into everything, from cars, appliances, even your vacuum cleaner, to the most sophisticated fighter jets. The global microchip shortage has led many U.S. companies to have to stop or scale back manufacturing. That drives up costs for families. And right now, we overly rely on microchips that are manufactured overseas. That puts us at a competitive disadvantage, including with adversaries like China. After nearly a year of work, we are as close as ever to pass this bipartisan legislation that will address this microchip shortage by bringing more of this manufacturing capacity back to U.S. soil. A $52 billion plan we negotiated with Republicans and Democrats was included in both the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, which passed the Senate in June, but also in the America Competes Act, which the House passed last week. This legislation supports plans announced by companies like Intel, TSMC, Samsung, and others to build large-scale microchip manufacturings in the U.S., including in the state of Arizona. That will create thousands of great-paying jobs, not good-paying jobs, but great-paying jobs, and boost struggling supply chains, which will lower costs for families. This is so critical. After a lot of hard work, we have made progress in getting this through the House and the Senate. Now, we need to work quickly to bridge our differences. I'm ready to do just that to get our plan over the finish line. Thank you.
Okay, questions? Yes.
Senator Schumer, can you just update us? Have you had any further engagement with the White House since your meeting with President Biden last week on SCOTUS? And then secondly, for you and Senator Gillibrand, you recommended Eunice Lee. Both introduced her to confirmation hearing. Is she your preferred candidate?
She's certainly our preferred candidate. And on the White House, we've talked to the president about SCOTUS. He's giving a very careful review of a good number of candidates, and we have faith that he will choose a very good, strong candidate. Yes.
On election reform, the bipartisan group that's meeting, they're focused, of course, on the Electoral Count Act. What kind of conversations have you had with them, if any? And would that be enough for Democratic leadership to get on board? Those changes you're
Okay. First, I've encouraged the meetings to occur. As you know, they're covering a wide variety of issues. They've broken up in subcommittees, not just on ECA. And look, my belief is that we need ECA reform, but it's not a substitute for voting rights, for getting rid of dark money, for dealing with gerrymandering, as we saw the Alabama case in the Supreme Court. So we need to do ECA, but we need to do more. It's not a substitute. Yes.
What's your timeline on UC or whatever you're calling it now?
Make it America.
Come on, say it.
Make it in America. What is
It's called the U word. You can't even say it.
you can't say the U word. What is
Yes.
the timeline on this?
Well, look, we want to get it done. As you know, there's quite a bit of difference between the House bill and the Senate bill, but both have the same core things in them. And so we want to come to agreement as quickly as possible. If we have to go through a conference, it takes a while because the bills have to be ping-ponged back and forth. And so we're looking at the best and quickest way to get it done. Yes.
How much fine-tuning needs to be done to produce a congressional stock trading ban that the whole caucus can
Okay.
get behind? And is that something that you would like to see on the floor by summer, fall?
I believe in it, and I've asked we have different bills from a variety of different members, and I've asked our members to get together and try to come up with one bill, but I would like to see it done. Yeah, Chad, go ahead.
What happens if Russia invades Ukraine and the Senate has still not approved this sanctions bill? We had indications last week that this was moving along, and that doesn't seem to be the case right now.
Okay, it is moving along, but there are still a couple of areas of disagreement. But they're bridging the gap. They're getting closer and closer. The basic view of many on our side and of the White House is to pass a full, strong sanctions bill before any invasion, and God forbid there be an invasion, would take away the disincentive from Russia invading. So that's one of the issues. Yes.
Senator Schumer, how difficult do you think it would be for congressional staff to unionize?
Look, I'm for it. It'll be up to the members of each staff to see what to be done, to see how to get it done. But I think it's a good thing. Last one.
Following up on Chad, can you commit to a sanctions package by the president's day recess by next week?
Well, we want to make sure there's a bipartisan agreement. To not have a bipartisan agreement wouldn't make much sense. I'm working very hard. I even went to I don't usually go to these embassy dinners, but the German prime minister was there and McConnell and I were there, and we pushed everybody to come to an agreement. We also pushed all of the allies, the U.S., Germany, and everyone else, to be unified. The only way to get this done is unity.
After that dinner, are you confident from the Germans that they will shut down Nord Stream 2 in the case?
Look, I don't want to give the details of the dinner, but I think there is unity between Germany and the United States. Thank you, everybody.
Did they have gluten-free cupcakes in the German?